Hello everyone! Welcome to this episode of Path, Passion, Purpose by Diane's. I'm extremely honored to be today here with Reto Ringger at Globalance Bank. Reto, thank you for having us. You're the CEO and the founder of the bank, and in a minute I would love to talk about that. But first I want to thank you for having us. And
thank you.
Thank you. And my first question is, where did your journey start? How did you end up where we are today? Because I know you started very early with a journey of how to combine finance and sustainability, maybe way in advance to anybody else. So can you please take us back and tell us how did it start and what were the first steps?
Maybe it started in my childhood because I'm a nature guy. I love to be in nature. I love to do sports. And so going to the university, you start coming into finance. And then suddenly that becomes more important to you. But this whole nature environment always was back in my mind. And so banking and investing is very interesting. And I was working at the stock exchange here in Switzerland in the old system where they had à la criée, so they still shouted to each other to the trades, and that fascinated me. I was also working for Swiss Re, for UBS, portfolio manager. But I always had this nature in mind and the sustainability challenges that we already had at that time. So I thought, why not combine that? Sustainable development and investments. And so that's how it started. I wrote a business plan, was looking for investors, was lucky enough to find two guys that said, okay, I'll be in. And so that's how we could start. And to a journey which took way longer than what we thought, but we're still on this journey.
So it started more almost as a startup, your journey into finance and sustainability. And which year did you start, and what exactly was that startup or that company about?
So I was working as an assistant to the CEO of Bank Vontobel, so I learned a lot. Also that maybe it's not attractive to be a CEO of a large company because you have a lot of politics and fights. So I decided to do my own thing. And that was in 93, 94. So I was, gathering facts and writing a business plan. And in 95, I had the financing. And so we could really start the company in 95.
And what was that company about? What was its mission? What was it doing?
I mean, the name of the company was Sustainable Asset Management, and that was also the purpose, to invest sustainably. And our main focus was institutional investors, like pension funds, insurance companies, and we had to start with a fund. So we were doing fundraising, and I was lucky that Swiss Re was our first investor, which was a great signal to the market because the Swiss Re, they understood the whole environmental topics. And so with that, customer, we really could attract others. And so that's how it started.
And from what I understand, you were working at the time to trying to convince some of the biggest companies in the world to also start thinking about how they're investing in a more sustainable way, and also you were working at the stock exchange. So can you tell us a bit more about that journey? Like, it sounds like a very hard journey in 1995. I mean, even today, sometimes it's hard to convince people that we need to do more about, you can call it impact investments, like system change investment, conscious investment, impact-driven decision-making investment. But back then, if I seeing how hard it is today, back then it must have been so much harder, especially if you were working with the biggest corporate giants and with the Dow Jones, from what I know. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what it entailed, and what products did you brought, and how did you convince those big companies to get engaged, and where is it today maybe? Because I believe a lot of the work you did is actually still alive.
I mean, if you start a company or a venture, then you really believe this is the next big thing. So you have no doubts. And so that was also in my case. So I never had a thoughts on what would happen if we fail. But obviously we were a bit too early with sustainable asset management in 95. And so people did not believe in the concept. And so then we had to think about how do we overcome that. And one idea was to create a stock index because people look at the news every evening and the Dow Jones is going up or down, so you have a feeling for prices. And so we thought maybe we create a sustainability index so that people can see that this is performing. And so that was the idea. And then we have never done an index before, right? So we had to look for a partner, and the best partner for such an index at that time was Dow Jones, because that's the brand. So we went after them a couple of times, because the first 2 times they refused, but then we were lucky to meet the right people, and we told them the story that this will be the next big thing. And they believed in us, and so they said, okay, let's do this. So we had Dow Jones as a partner, and then the problems began, because we had to gather data to do such an index and to measure sustainability at the corporates. And we learned that Dow Jones, they had 68 different sectors. And for us, that meant we had to do 68 different questionnaires: chemicals, pharmaceuticals, cars, software, and so on. And we were only 8 people, so that was really kind of an effort. But we did it, and we sent out the questions to the companies, and because the logo of Dow Jones was on the letterhead, they responded. So we got a lot of data, and we could compare that and create the first index, and that's how it started. And then obviously we tried to give them awards and rankings and gold and silver and bronze, and so it became more popular for them. And we could gather data, and so we could really create portfolios. And that's how it started, and that really gave us also exposure and reputation in the market.
It's incredible that the first sustainability index was created by you, and it's still alive. But also, can you tell us what was probably the biggest challenges you were facing, despite having even the Dow Jones logo, to convince that this is something the corporation should care about? Because I think we're still facing probably the same challenge today, even though the times have changed, and the implications of how important it is today more obvious than ever, and every day, every year, every month is going to get more obvious. What were for you? Was it mindset? Was it just that people weren't yet ready, or perception, or was it just, what was it that was the most challenging that today we can still learn to address it?
I think the most challenging part was that you're so far ahead with an idea as an entrepreneur that, your customers or your community that should really buy the product, they're not there yet. And so this is really to bridge the gap, right? And so in our case, as an example, in our questionnaire, we wanted to know what's your carbon emission. So we went to ABB and said, what's your carbon emission? They did not have the data. So we were, too far ahead, so we had to scale down. And I think that was a big challenge. The other challenge is really to be patient and to have staying power, especially with sustainability. And in psychology, there's a concept called the 4 rooms of change. So if you have a problem, then you have to go through the 4 rooms. The first room is happiness, so perfect. And the second room is the denial, so deny the problem. And the third room is really, if the problem pops up, then you're confronted with it, and then you're in the room of confusion. And I think we have been very long in the room of happiness. So environment was not a topic, so why should I invest sustainably? And then we were in the room of denial. Some of us are still in that room. And now most of us are in the room of confusion, because, okay, we have a problem, how do we deal with it? And I think going through that phase, that's also a challenge, and really not to be far ahead and build the bridges for the people that are also part of that journey.
How long do you think, and that's a bit of an unfair question because it's about the future and uncertainty, but how long do you think it would take us as a humanity to enter the last room and actually really deal with it?
I mean, I started in 95, so that's 30 years, so it's more than a generation. And I think it probably takes maybe another generation, but 10 years. Because, to change existing systems, and I think we really need to change a couple of things here, economic structure, incentive systems, and so on. And this just takes time, because you also have, people that will lose, or that will not be part of, let's say, the upside of what's changing, because you will always have winners and losers. and they will try to stop this process. They will lobby, and you have seen that in the tobacco industry, you see it now in the fossil fuel industry. So this will not, accelerate the speed, and I think, but it's moving, it's going faster, but it still takes time.
So, Globalance is obviously a bank, and when we generally think about the financial sector, I always say it's like nice to talk about oil and gas change, but if you don't change the financial system, how are you changing that, right? If the shareholders are still the main stakeholders, we can't really move away from how we as a society operate financially. So it's obviously amazing that in such traditional industry, you're trying to make such an impactful change. But before we come to where we are today, what happened then to your first, so to speak, startup, which turned very big? But how did that journey end to where you came then today to decide I'm going to found this bank?
I mean, we have developed a startup over time, and it became successful, but after the first period, and then we raised interest from other players that suddenly wanted to move into the market. And when I started this company, I never had majority of the company, so my other shareholders, were attracted by the price that was offered. So we sold the company, and then we had some cash in the bank, and we thought, okay, the journey continues. Let's do now a bank. So the first company was focused on institutional investors, and the bank now is focused on private investors and families and foundations. And that's how we started. So to really create a sustainable investment solutions for private investors.
Why did you move from institutional investors to private investors? Why do you think private investors have right now power to maybe create that change?
I think they are faster when it comes to decision, because in the institutional sector, the decision is distributed among a lot of people. So nobody is really responsible. As a private investor, you are responsible for your own wealth. So you're much closer to the decision and much closer to the consequences of your decision. So, and I can see that, dealing with institutional investors and with private investors, it's going faster. Because they have less structures and less different entities where they have to go through the decision. I also see a new generation of investors. Female investors really are much more in favor of that, but also younger people, baby boomers also. So I think that will help really to influence the suppliers, because at the end, they will only walk if their customers are asking for this type of service.
And in a minute, I want to come more to what you do at the bank, because I find it very fascinating. But I also believe statistically you have actually a huge percentage of female clients, correct? Was it?
About 48%.
Which is huge. And yet we're going through one of the biggest transformation of wealth towards also women. And usually they have not been asked to sit on the table to make this decision. So I find it highly impressive for them to sit on the table. But it takes education. And I think a lot of what you do here is also about education, educating the client about the decision they're taking around their investments, not just when it comes to you, but all of their investments. Can you tell us a little bit more, why is it important to educate the client, and how do you do that?
I mean, in our industry, the gap between the supplier, which is the bank, and the customer is huge. And it's because this difference of information and of understanding. So I think communication and simple communication is really crucial, so that your customer understands what is going on here. So from very early days, we have put a lot of energy into communication. We have developed a couple of tools. So we have something called the footprint. So what's the footprint of your investment? So people can see, what's my impact on society, on the economy, on the environment. A couple of years ago, we developed a digital globe, like Google Earth. So you really can look at the globe and look, okay, where is my impact, in which countries, with which companies. So we try to simplify a complex topic like sustainability and investing into something that is understandable. And really also make it that people could have a better feeling what their money is having as an impact.
Yeah, really doing. And I've seen the platform, and having worked at Palantir, I really know the difference between really good platforms and platforms that are not so. And I'm highly impressed because you can basically Google in the platform. You can search any stock, and we did that together with just picking a couple. And you not only see what they're doing, but you also get to see truly every aspect of how your investments are impacting the world, different sectors, different regions, different everything, but in a way that even a 10-year-old could understand if they understand, because it's so visually easy to comprehend. I think it's admirable that a bank decided to actually invest so much in technology too, to make the process of for the client to understand really what they're doing easy. Was it from the beginning very clear to you that you want technology to be also such a big part of what you do?
Not by intention, because in '95 technology was not where it is today. Yeah, but the bank, we started 2011. So, technology was not there as it is today, especially when you look at costs. For a small player, that was a huge project. And these days, costs have come down. You can do much more. You can do it much faster and so on. But I have a bit of chips in my blood, because my father was working from 18 to 64 at IBM. So that's my company, my sector. So I must have some of those, digital elements in my blood. And I really like technology. I like the visualization and what you can do with it. And so that, was important. And I think now we're entering a new phase with new opportunities and to really scale it up also with the support of digital solutions.
And I know, apart from having founded the bank and being the CEO of the bank, I know you're involved with many other different very value-aligned and purpose-aligned projects, for example, the Club of Rome, etc. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing outside to also change the conversation, raise awareness, and to move humanity into understanding that our investments need to be way more conscious and understanding the footprint we are living?
I'm a doer. I see things and I want to execute. So I'm not a professional board member or advisor, but now I'm getting a bit older. So I try to transfer some of my experience to, let's say, others. So I'm involved in startups. So I help them, and then it's amazing. You have more and more startups that also are in this, sustainability area. So that's something I do. Other things is more really helping to understand how could we create new systems like the Club of Rome. So I really, and also be a bit egoistic, be together with smart and interesting people and learn from them, because we only can solve it interdisciplinary. So we have to take different people into the decision process and the creation to come up with solutions.
I don't think that's egoistic. At Alliance, we also, as you know, we don't focus on one peer group. We actually bridge as many peer groups together as long as they are impact-driven and conscious. And that's design thinking. And design thinking has been proven that it leads to better solutions by bringing just diverse individuals with different experiences, backgrounds together. And I think the world actually needs more of that if we really want to solve some of the biggest challenge, because otherwise we end up in box thinking versus literally in thinking that's okay, I didn't know about this area, or I couldn't have thought about it from this perspective, but your knowledge is actually helping solve the problem from that perspective. I have a feeling we're slowly running out of time, and as you mentioned, so you founded the bank in 2011, and two big questions. One is again a little bit unfair because it's about the uncertainty of where we're going, but what's your vision for the bank, for your sector, and for humanity? Actually, three questions: bank, sector, humanity.
I think for the bank, our industry will change a lot in the next 10 years, I believe. So we also have to change. And I think what is really core is our skills to translate thinking about sustainability into portfolios. But maybe in different kind of offerings. maybe not in the form of a portfolio anymore. Maybe it's in the form of of an app, of a digital solution. That's to be seen. But I think we should be open also to other forms of products. So that's for the bank. Be open and also be very agile when it comes to partnerships with companies outside the financial industries. And then for the industry, I think it will be a challenge because the financial industry is the industry with the highest margins on the market of most of the sectors. Maybe the IT sector is a bit higher, but so this will come under pressure. And usually when that comes under pressure, you have a lot of turmoil and development. So you really have to be innovative and open and agile, which I think is better for smaller companies than for big entities. But let's see how fast that develops. Also, this new generation of investors will challenge the banks a lot because they have different requirements and values. And the third one about humanity, that's a challenging one. For me, the glass is always half full. I think a lot of opportunities with technology. Technology will not solve everything. We also have to act a bit more long-term and more ethical. So, but the combination of technological solutions, new thinking, taking also the environmental, social aspects into the business model, I think our future will be better than in the past. At least that's my purpose and my focus.
I'm so happy that you're an optimist because very often I ask the individuals who we interview, are you an optimist, realist, pessimist? And more often than not, from people who used to be optimists, I get an answer that they're more towards now the pessimist side. And if we don't have positive, like if our energy is not put into the positive and also thinking about how can we actually make that change, we actually won't be able to. So it's a trade-off between being realistic but then also staying positive that we can actually achieve greater good for all of humanity if possible. So I appreciate that answer and that ending note. So I really want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I appreciate being here. Thank you for sharing all your story and hope we get to do more together in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.